Okay, well, we're live on Cosmos Astrum. Give us just 1 minute. Michelle is on her way. It's always the last episode. The last episode. Everything's going to go haywire. So, but Michelle will be here very shortly. Has everybody been listening to Cosmos Astrum Radio? You know, I do get stats. Actually, most people have been listening is on in Regina. So that's pretty cool. And oh, and there she is.
Hello.
You know, I got to make a big episode of it. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. How you holding up?
Well, look, I've aged gracefully. That is not true. What has it been? It's been almost 20 years we were figuring it. It's like it feels like it's forever ago. Actually, just really honestly, jumping around on stage in New Orleans, it feels like yesterday. But
yeah.
The good old days. Well, perceptions.
Good old bad old days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was a long time ago, and I flushed that down the toilet. So, how have you been?
Can't complain. I mean, there's a pandemic on. I don't know if you've heard. That, makes life a little complicated, but otherwise doing pretty good.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, I don't know how they wouldn't know. I had this all planned out because I was going to be kicking back like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I'm over on the Facebook going, why is this not working?
Well, just so that you know, this is our last live feed episode that we're going to be doing with the Cosmos Astrum. And because we're moving everything over to, because I do a show on SLE Radio in the UK, and then we just launched our own radio station. So we're going to be moving a lot of these on broadcasts. So I'm playing some like old goth music that we haven't heard in a while. So yeah. But with that being said, those that don't know you, introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself. Well, not all about yourself. We don't want the dirty.
Well, also, I think it would take a very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, I'm Michelle Belanger. I was editor of Shadow Dance magazine in the early 90s, a designer of LARPs, Vampire the Masquerade LARPs for Wizards of the Coast and Origins Gaming. And I'm also the author of the Psychic Vampire Codex, one of the co-authors of the Black Veil, an elder of the vampire community, founder of House Keperu, and also somebody who now runs around the country with Jack Osborne and Katrina Weidman chasing ghosts.
How's that going for you, by the way?
That's actually, it's a lot of fun. Katrina, of course, I worked with her in Paranormal State, and so she knows a lot of my interest in doing that is sort of getting a chance to test the limits of what I can do and how all of it works. And getting picked up and flown to weird places I've never heard of before and chucked into them blindfolded is the best way to test that out. Nice. And Jack tolerates our weirdness.
But it, yeah, because I remember when Jack was working on several other episodes in the past, he's always been one to, just from the perception of watching the shows, it's always been one that's more accepting of trying new things, going outside the bounds and, of the norm. And that's what I liked about him. But so real quick, and I apologize for doing this, but locally we have a store named Jessup's, and the Jessup's General Store and the Broom Closet, they merged together. So real quick, because I want to get into these next topics really heavily, I want to play a quick ad from them. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, please. By all means, you don't need to apologize.
I love that.
Pimp that stuff.
Welcome to Jessup's General Store and the Broom Closet Witchcraft Supply Shop. I'm Carly Jessup, owner of Jessup's General Store. and not seen on camera is Donna Kruger, who's the owner of the Broom Closet Witchcraft Supply Shop. We are located in Regina, Saskatchewan in the Heritage neighborhood. And in our shop, you can find all sorts of cool things, from occult-inspired clothing, art and accessories, to witchcraft supplies like herbs, incense, candles, and other sorts of divination tools. Hopefully you can come and check it out sometime.
Yeah, we like to refer to Donna at the Broom Closet as Mama. That's so. Yeah, everybody loves them. So, I want to touch on the paranormal because on the UK show, and I discuss this a lot, and because some of the research that we do here and what have you. So, and I'm really looking forward to this point of view, especially working with Jack. As most paranormal shows have evolved into a kind of an Abbott and Costello form of entertainment for viewers, you feel that when they started, that there was a real intention to educate people on what the paranormal investigations were all about.
I would agree with that. Certainly, well, it really depended on the show, though, also, because one of the sort of comeuppances that I had when I got involved with Paranormal State was realizing that the production company didn't actually believe in the paranormal. They saw an opportunity. They saw that this sort of stuff was popular. And honestly, reality TV is a lot easier to finance because it skirts around things like actors guilds and screenwriters guilds. So they saw an opportunity and they took it. But I will say that the crew, the cast of Paranormal State, and this is one of the reasons why I think that was the hit show that it was, because we had like 3.5 million viewers just in the U.S. at one point, like an obscene amount now, in retrospect. Was they were friends at college that founded their own little paranormal group, and they were in it to explore, to educate, to kind of bust down walls, to help people figure out like what is going on in their homes and give them answers. And when you see teams like that, I think it really shows that that's what they're there for.
And it's funny you should mention that. This is a local in Canada, a show, and I'm not going to name the name of the show or the actors or anything like that. The people that do the investigations are actually there to do investigations. But as you well know, you go to some locations, nothing happens, and the producers were harassing them, saying, "You got to make the lights blink. You got to make something happen, because we can't sell the show." And excuse me, it turned into this big mess, and of course, they were complaining to us, saying this, they don't understand. Not every location is going to cause activity on your equipment and everything else, because they want the blinky lights nowadays.
Yeah, no, we ran into the same problem toward the end with Paranormal State, and they would be like, "Well, this show has evidence all the time," and we're like, "Yeah, it doesn't actually work that way. So maybe their evidence isn't really evidence."
Yeah, exactly. So, what is your opinion on the separation? Excuse me, on the separation now of investigations versus research. It seems to be this divide happening where you have more researching going on versus the actual investigators going out. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I like the fact that we get to see more of the research now, because, like with Paranormal State, my initial involvement was not as an investigator, but was off camera behind the scenes as a researcher. So I was the person who got the 3 a.m. conversation while they were in upstate Maine, walking around in the forest with Lorraine Warren in heels and a little white linen dress in the forest, because that's sensible. Asking about like, do you know anything that fits this description? So I'm like, Bobby from Supernatural going like, let me check my box.
Yeah.
And the thing is at that time that aspect was seen as boring. And so you wouldn't get to see all of the research that went in. I love that we're seeing now, like really what is the full team. You have the people who are in the field, and then you have the people who are like hitting the books or interviewing people, like really digging down deep to figure out what's going on, because it's always more than just somebody died in the house and therefore it's haunted.
Yeah, that absolutely drives me nuts because how often have you heard this? I think my place is haunted because such and such died here, such and such died here. It's not always who died there. You know, it's sometimes it's who's attached to the location.
Mm-hmm.
And people tend to focus on who actually died, or, you know, I've to be quite serious. I've seen teams go, well, I'm sorry, we can't investigate because we don't show any history of death at
Mm-hmm.
this location. You know, that doesn't, you know, they shouldn't be walking away from
That
those.
doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, I've definitely had people who are like, I don't know how my house is haunted or why, because it's brand new. Like
Mhm,
what's happened here? And I'm like, well, do you own any antiques? Did
mhm.
you have anybody who died that was close to you? Honestly, let's just be very straightforward. Spirits can move. Like
Yeah,
they actually can just pick up and go, you look interesting. I'm going to hang around you for a while. So it's
that's
not
why.
as easy as just going, Bob J. Young died here 5 years ago, and therefore that's why my easy chair rocks.
That's why I used to joke and say, you know, when I pass away, I'm not going to be haunting a gravesite or anything. I'm going to be hanging out at the beach, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, but, and here's one of my favorite topics. Yes, because it is a dirty word. There's a dirty word in the paranormal field, and I'm using the paranormal field as an umbrella statement,
Yeah.
not just with ghost hunting or, you know, one or the other. Um, and that is the word occult.
Mm.
Um, many paranormal investigators want to fall back on religious biases for answers, you know, aka opinions, and while ignoring the occult sciences. What are your thoughts on this? And before you answer, I just want to say that, you know, like you, I have a library here,
Mm-hmm.
in which, you know, we're very proud to have most of your books here. But so come and check them out. But you know, a lot of times I'll go into like an old 14th century manuscript because I'll find some correlation there or whatnot. Yes, these are classified as occult books.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that there's such a stigma? Why is it such a dirty word?
The satanic panic plays a big role in it. I mean, for full disclosure, I think of myself as an occultist before I think of myself as a paranormal investigator. And my involvement in the paranormal community was sort of adjacent to all the other stuff that I did. Uh, One is just simply not understanding the word occult itself.
Hmm.
It's been sort of promoted as like cult, like they drop the o off of it entirely, and it just occult means cultish, means bad, means like black clad people meeting in the forest, sacrificing babies and goats and drinking blood out of chalices, and just, you know, B horror movie schlock.
Hmm.
And occult simply means occluded, hidden, mysterious. Anything, any knowledge, any practice that was behind a veil of secrecy, which honestly the paranormal was for many years also. So technically it's all occult.
Hmm.
And if we want to make a distinction between the paranormal community, which is more focused on, you know, ghosts, cryptids, maybe a UFO and big, you know, Bigfoot here and there, and folks who actively study, like are trying to practice some aspect of magic or at least understand its history and roots. Uh, if we want to call that the occult community, those are people who take a little bit more of a hands-on approach, and I think are often coming from a perspective where they believe at least some of it is real.
Hmm.
There's no need to prove to themselves with an EK, you know, whatever meter, or, you know, K2 meter with a ghost box. They're not like searching for the holy grail to prove to everybody else that ghosts are real. Occultists are like, well, yeah, because I was working with things out of the Ars Goetia, and I totally know how to like summon this spirit. And we had a long conversation, and I don't know if I would call it a demon, but certainly there was an intelligence there.
Right.
Uh, so there's, it's two different approaches and then there's a lot of misinformation, and certainly in like the 80s and 90s, in the height of the Satanic Panic, especially in the U.S. But I know that that spread U.S., Canada, U.K.
Mhm.
Uh, the occult was presented as synonymous with not only satanic, but uh, destructive, malevolent, cult-like behavior,
Mhm.
which was a lie. Like it was completely made up. It was the same sort of Pizzagate stuff that we got going on right now, where it's like, oh, this is a very uncomfortable flashback.
Agreed. You know, the whole gatekeeping and well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot. Like, let's talk about history rather than getting into like the
yeah.
horrible tangle that is right now. But I mean, rest
Yeah.
assured that there was no such thing as like secret satanic cabals across the country
Mhm.
stealing blonde white kids out of the neighborhoods and sacrificing them in their basements any more than there are reptilian aliens doing the same thing now. Like it's same story, round and round and round.
Well, it's always controlled through fear,
Yeah.
and yeah, at the end of the day, that's a lot of people see the memes that I put on the Meduto Effect page, and it's all circled around don't let people control you through fear,
Mm.
and uh, because just for that same identical reason. So and this next one is actually more of a sensitive subject for me, and I want to give you an example.
Okay.
uh, I you know I get many calls concerning this. This isn't out of the blue. This is actually quite frequent, especially for this area. How do you feel about those in the paranormal field, once again a blanket term, that utilize fear uh, to come in and charge exuberant fees,
Mm.
only to come in and wave a few K2s around and, throw some sage up in the air and, you know, and say, voila, this house is cleansed. Um, and I'm going to give you an example. Uh, we get a call about this location. It's heavily active, everything else. They are already out close to $3,000 from people coming in, saging the place,
Mm.
and doing their purifications, putting crystals around the house and whatnot, and then came in and wanted to charge them $5,000 to do an exorcism on an autistic child. So we come in,
Mm.
2 hour conversation. That's all it took. Was just a conversation, no investigation, no running around with equipment, no nothing. And a lot of people in the Cosmos Astrum listening has heard me say this story several times. And I pulled out the Zener cards and I did a quick test. Now, there's a probability rating with the Zener cards, but this quick test showed that the mother-in-law, the stepmother, had gifts, but so did the autistic child.
Mm.
And they were both, one was having troubles with work and everything else and was keeping it bottled in. The child, because she was autistic, was having problems at school. And they were feeding off of each other, causing all this activity. All it took was them to sit down every night and have 1 hour conversation with each other, calm the air, and there was no more activity. But it took this group using religion as a fear factor. Um, they were using that to control them and to get extortion for money and more money and more money. So,
Those price tags make me very angry. Uh,
mhm.
I've got some very, very strong opinions about this, and it's why like people will ask me like, "Do you do readings? Do you charge for readings?" And I will usually kind of deflect and go, "Well, I personally have a problem with that, but I don't." My first thing is when you're putting your time into something, I'm not 100% against like paying for your travel expenses, paying for a little bit of your time, but there's a point where it crosses into preying upon people's fear, preying upon the fact that they don't know how things actually work,
Mhm.
preying upon their desperation to make this phenomena that they don't understand just stop. And there are so many people who don't know magic from a hole in the ground,
Hmm.
who will just kind of slap on the "I'm a demonologist. I have this handy little certificate proving that I printed out on my laser jet just this morning. I am
Hmm.
authentic, I swear." And then use that to charge thousands of dollars for nothing that's guaranteed. And it infuriates me, especially when a much better approach is to empower the family to figure out what they can do to protect themselves.
Yep. That's a firm believer of us is empowering the individual, because when you're doing things for them, you're actually removing that from them.
Mhm.
Um, Now that yes, there's situations where they try and try, and it turns into a different scenario. But I am right at there on board with you. It's um, can I give you a brief example? I just used this example earlier
Yeah.
today. I make these candles in the shop, and they have different purposes. I use the right oils, I make them at the right times, I use the right herbs, everything. And my latest challenge, and everybody knows this that knows me, is a protection candle.
Mhm.
If you believe that this candle is going to protect you, I ask you to light it and walk out in traffic and let me know what happens.
Mm.
Now, the candle's not going to protect you. It has nothing to do with that. It's you as an individual. You empower yourself. The candle is just a trigger item to help you, and that's it. So, um, it's important for people to learn to empower themselves. And these people that go out and pray, sorry, this is literally a sore subject with me.
Oh no, no, and me too. Like literally was having a like 30-minute, 40-minute just intense conversation with my wife earlier today on exactly the subject, because like I was just going off about a
it,
thing.
it's it,
This
it
is
is
a thing.
this is a well, we call them red cup nights. Where you put the alcohol in the cup and you just start drinking and start ranting.
Yeah.
But because it goes on and on and on, and these people see these opportunities to prey on the people, and they're using fear. I have a recording, a voicemail recording, and I'm not going to play it.
Mm.
But the recording is a woman in tears, in absolute panic. Now, she's from Canada. She called a paranormal team in the States. I'm not even going to say their name because I call that advertisement.
Yeah.
And she calls them and says, "I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I think I'm seeing this. I think I'm seeing that. And I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I just don't know." And pretty much says somebody's seen too many movies and whatnot. So their first response is nothing about, history of the house or nothing. It's a demon. And after she
And
said that,
only we can free you of it. Only us, no one
yes,
else.
exactly. So
Hmm.
she calls our number and is in tears, crying, panicking, because once she told them that she was religious, they used that
Mhm.
as an angle to scare her even more and make her, more dependent on them. And these teams, honestly, I wish there was a way to. Allison actually has a great idea about this, but I wish there was a way we can expose all these people for who they really are. They're charlatans. They're snake oil salesmen, and
I, I I know that it is not a feasible proposition because I've been beating my head against the possibility for decades, but like certification, something like I understand that licensing is often a way to control things in an unpleasant way. Like
hmm
in the States, there were places or there were laws passed against anything as simple as reading tarot cards. So you needed to have a license, and like there are lots of ways to judge people and kind of keep marginalized folks out. But at the same time, demonology. I took demonology in
hmm
college. I wrote the Dictionary of Demons. I still don't call myself a demonologist, but there's like somebody will be like, "Well, I'm a certified demonologist," and they'll like slap like some little thing where they point me toward a website, and I'm like, "This website connect this this person is. How much did you pay for this? I feel really bad for you right now." Because
actually, I give
because
an example in the last broadcast I just did on SLE Radio in the UK. was one of the warning signs. When you have a person with 30 plus certifications, and they have them all spread out for you to see, and look at the dates, you'll see that they're within like 30 days of each other,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a master at this, and they're a professional at this. If you see these little quick ones that they're you know taking all these courses, props to them for sitting there doing it, but that doesn't make them a master at anything. And
They
I always
are
say,
figuring out where to get
mhm,
certifications.
yeah, yeah. And the other part is I always say there. And this is my personal opinion, as a constant student, that there are no experts in the
Yeah.
field. We are always learning, and we're learning from each other and from learning from the experience. So when somebody walks up and says, "I'm an expert at this," it should throw up some red flags right away. And
Yeah. No, red flags that I would tell people to watch out for is if they tell you only they can see it, or
mm,
only they can perceive it, only they can solve it.
right,
If you know other people who have not perceived this and they're like, no, you have a curse, you have a
mm,
demon. And again, like they are the only person who can solve it. Another flag is, well, I would do this for free, but my supplies cost a lot. So I need to, it's going to be $5,000 for all these special candles and crystals that I need to bring in. And they'll like really give you a reason why it costs that much money.
yeah,
But, sweetie, honey, child, no, it doesn't. And you don't even need anything that fancy. Like, go get yourself something from like the corner store, and that will work just as fine because it's about your focus, it's about the intention. Like, all of the stuff is mostly window dressing to help keep you focused.
yeah. It's they're trigger items to help
Yeah.
to create that. I'm going to bring up Raven posted on here, and this is she. I'm going to drop her comment on the screen. What about classes to help you
Mm.
identify demons and how to perform exorcisms? Now, you mind if I throw in my opinion on that real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead, please.
My opinion is, um, when you're teaching someone, you're instilling fear on the concept of these demons, so that the exorcism factor comes back. The Now you're contacting the teacher, saying, "Okay, I can't do the exorcism. How much you going to charge to come and do it?" Um, I mean, studying up on demons, fine. I mean, I have a nice selection of demonology books, and I study on very amateurish, on that concept. But when people are holding classes, on teaching demons and how to do exorcisms, which scares me personally on the word exorcism because of psychological damage that can happen if they're, on this person. What are your thoughts on someone holding a 2-week class on how to deal with demons and
My
exorcism?
advice for taking classes on any subject, and especially in like the paranormal and occult, before you take the class, look into the person who's teaching it.
Mhm.
Like, if they're going to present themselves as an expert, how long have they been teaching? What else have they done? Who did they learn from? If they're claiming it as intuitive knowledge, do you feel comfortable in the source of that knowledge? Uh, have they read books? Not just written books, because these days it's actually pretty easy to write a book and say, hey, look, I wrote a book, I'm an
Yeah.
expert. And I say this as somebody who's written 30 plus books. But also, like, what are their sources?
Mhm.
Be vigilant in trying to figure that out. Also, who else has taken their class? Can you talk to them? Not just the happy little, like, 5 people have taken this class and I'm going to cherry pick all of the nice things they said. 3 of them are my cousins and this is my mom, but I'm not going to tell you that part. And these other ones I just made up. Like do look into them, vet them.
Mhm.
And like in the same way that you would, actually, this is the example that we used earlier today. Um, you wouldn't have somebody walk up to you and go, hey, your car's broken down. I can fix your car. Oh, are you a mechanic? I am an intuitive car fixer.
I like that. I'm
But
going to steal that.
but do you know how to fix the car? The spirits will tell me. Do you want them to fix your car? Like, at that point, do you want to trust your car to them? Think the same sort of thing that you would do for a plumber, for a therapist, for any of that, for a
Mhm.
doctor for that matter. Like, you want to know that you can trust this person's expertise that they claim. Don't just trust letters after their name.
Right. Okay. Let's. I know it's not on my agenda, but we're going to play a little role play. Okay. So,
Mm.
all right, people that have that dirty mind, stop. The
Those
exactly.
are the good old battle days, don't mind.
I know.
Right?
I immediately went there too. Oh, horrible flashbacks. Okay, so I'm teaching here soon a workshop. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really. I don't like the word class
Mm.
because I learn from it as well. And how because we have so many of these occurrences that I just gave you those examples about going on. And so I'm actually holding a workshop on how to investigate properly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you're someone interested in the class. What would be some challenging questions for me so that, you know, one,
Mm-hmm.
so they would also have the same questions, when they come
Yeah.
into the classroom. Um, I want them to feel comfortable and whatnot. And I always tell everybody this isn't the answer, this isn't the be all. That's like my opening statement to everything. You know, this is an investigation process. This isn't how to ghost hunt. This is an investigation process that we're going to learn. So, what would be a question that you would ask me?
One that's a tricky question would be, would taking your class make me an expert in this?
No, there are no experts. I'm not an expert. This is just an exposure so you can develop your own process.
If I have a lot of questions, what happens if you can't answer them?
Then we got to work on it together. If I don't have the answers, then we both need to learn.
Are you okay if I take classes like this from somebody else also at the
Absolutely.
same time?
Absolutely. My classes are free, so
Yeah. The how much does it cost, or how much will it cost me eventually, is another good question.
yeah, because the everything that we do here is donation based, but the cost eventually that's up to the investigator. What route did you want to go? How much information? How much data collection did you want to go? So
What belief system are you working from?
belief system is none, strictly on data, because you
Mhm.
have to approach an investigation completely unbiased. You can't go in. It's fine to be religious. It's fine to be this. It's fine to be that. But you have to remove these out of the equation when you're going into an investigation.
Yeah, because the belief one, I think, is important in the same way. Like, again, if you're looking for a therapist and say you're pagan,
Mhm.
you're a queer pagan, and you get like a strict gay conversion therapy therapist, like that is not a good fit. Like, those
Yeah.
those two things do not go great together. Nobody's going to have a good experience out of that. So if you are coming into investigation as like a very, very religious person, say you're very, very Christian, you may not have the same experience that other pagans or witches will. If you're learning from a witch, there may be some things that are very challenging to your belief system. I encourage people to do that anyway, just to sort of like get different perspectives.
Mhm.
But like, knowing that, like, will you be comfortable with what this person is going to ask you to buy into in terms of belief?
Yeah.
Because folks who are speaking from a perspective of belief, that's going to be part of what they teach you.
And that's the
And I
thing
think,
is, especially in this workshop environment,
yeah.
a person may have a perspective of only a biased religious point of view. So it's important that from the beginning we have to kind of nullify that, because otherwise I could easily offend them. And
Mhm.
but I'm gonna throw Jenny's comment up here. And
Yeah.
by the way, we're gonna actually get to her shortly. But good investigators should know thyself,
Yeah.
and that is true. It's all about you, not what's around you, what your influence is. It's you, you know. I and I have I wrote a book which is minuscule compared to you, but
I, if
I,
I washed my hands as much as I wrote, people would know that maybe I needed medication, or an intervention now and then.
mine was out of frustration. It was on the paranormal,
Well, that's
and
that's what started me out. Where I was just like, I read Dan Fortune's Psychic Self Defense, and it made me mad.
It's I know the book, um, but it's a very. I didn't use any political correctness in the book. I thought it was actually going to make a lot of people mad.
Mm,
But one of the things I said in there in my Matt kind of way was you can't go in investigation immediately walking in the door waving a cross around or even waving a pinnacle around because you're going to give somebody a concussion or poke somebody's eye out. I mean, it's, you have to go in with an open mind, and looking for the Jenny says it's not a competition, Matt.
mm.
Everything's a competition with me. But it's uh it just drives me nuts when I see teams that go in and they focus on, I've got so many examples for you, it would just nauseate you, especially local around here. Okay, I gotta step away from that because I
Yeah,
could
I mean,
go.
because like religion can help inform a person's approach, but I would say that as an instructor, especially in the paranormal or even the occult, if what you're teaching a class to is indoctrinate other people into your belief
Mm,
system,
yeah,
that's a flag. What
yeah,
you
that's a
should
huge.
be like doing is like, here are approaches, and this is how I take the approach because of what I believe.
Hmm.
And I know I have to like dance that myself because I do have some beliefs that are like, there's some very weird beliefs like Keprian past lives, like all that weird stuff. Also, by the way, I'm a psychic vampire, which is just like, enough to light some people's hair on fire in the paranormal. Um,
We can both think of one person too. Anyway,
and go like, and also here's this other stuff that is, this is not like the whole sum of who I am. Like, and I don't ask you
mhm,
necessarily to like believe in that, but it's part of my experience. So like understanding, I think how to tread that line is important too.
agreed. Yeah, because when we do the it's a 3-part class because as you well know, you can't do a 1 hour course, and
No.
it's impossible. So each one is 2 hours and it's 3 parts. And the last one we actually do an investigation, but under bad scenarios, basically, because as you well know, it doesn't go just like they do on a TV. You're trying to do an EVP, for example, and you got wind, you got background
Hmm.
noise, you got all these different scenarios that play a part in it. So we're actually going to be doing it. I mean, we bought this building, which is an old bank. We have safes here.
Hmm. That's cool.
That's why I have my questionnaire. Are you claustrophobic? Anyway, so real quick, a person that you know very well is
Hmm.
Sean from Thunder Bay, but he has
Yeah.
with Lux Files. Um, he also has this add-on here for Lalakano ones. So I'm gonna.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
The previous place, I'm like, are any of the candles there? Like, I might know who made the candles.
Yeah, I love him to death. I met him at a Culticon. I did a lecture there and just immediately attached myself to Sean. But I'm staring right at the ad and I can't find it. Wow. And
Okay.
I'm going to hold a class on how to look for paranormal. Wow. All right, here we go.
Okay. Adho.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean and I'm the owner of Lalo Gonzalez. I make natural handcrafted intention-based products like beeswax spell candles, scented spell candles, loose incense, stick incense, liquid incense, anointing oils, and bath salts. So you can check out all of my products on my website at www.lailokensAWEN.com.
I want to know how Sean ends up looking so perfect every time he's on
The
camera.
perfect brows. Like, just the eyebrow game is just.
It's just I couldn't pull that off if look at me, I'm a mess. So a couple of people actually on here. That's why I said we'll bring up Jenny shortly. I know Raven as well. They participated with the virtual gathering, the gathering.
Oh, cool.
So, uh, for those who are not able to attend or was not aware, um, tell us a little bit about it.
In October of 2000, I started doing the House Kepru Gather as a place to create like an open forum dialogue of people from multiple different backgrounds, belief systems, and stuff to come together and share their perspectives, mainly on energy work, vampirism, things like that. And we've been doing it since then. And obviously, the pandemic happened, so we shifted it to online. And this year, I have to say that with the Gather community, I think we knocked it out of the park. Like, we really figured out how to make it also feel immersive and get that sort of like really tight community feel.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a number of different guest presenters, including Matt Oren, author of The Psychic Witch, as our like premier, like really cool person, and our also very cool presenter, Tarek Rivet. And it's a hybrid thing because since it's hosted by House Kepru, it is not exclusively Keprian stuff. It's some of our we share some of ours stuff, and then we also bring in people to share multiple perspectives, and that dialogue among multiple perspectives, encouraging people to explore many different things is the really like key part of it for me, and the diversity, like making people really understand that there's no one way to do any of this, and probably the best way to understand how magic, the occult, energy work, any of it works is to try all of the different ways and see what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a side note, although we can't do the live thing anymore because that's in the past, you can still get tickets because it's the one handy thing with it being online is it's all archived. So you can buy a ticket and just watch at leisure from your home.
Nice. I know just popped up Jenny and Raven's comments on the screen. They really enjoyed it. And um,
Tarek's class was mind blowing.
oh,
And
really? That's
yeah,
actually
it was.
my next question for you is give me a big highlight.
Oh, I mean, so I love Matt Oren as a presenter, and he is a fantastic bridge between sort of like where we started out back 20, 30 years ago, where there wasn't necessarily room for some of like the vampiric and darker themed spirituality among the witches and other pagans. And Matt is just like, screw that. Here, paranormal, psychic, witch, energy work, all of it. We're all looking at the same thing and we're
Mm-hmm.
all using different words, and let's just freaking get along and have a conversation about how it works.
Yeah.
And that is sort of like my thing of Matt Oren in a nutshell. So if you want to like poke around at that, his book Psychic Witch is a bestseller for a reason. It's brilliant. And Tarek was a great. It was because of their disabilities. We were trying to figure out how we would have been able to get them to the physical gather, and the fact that we did it and could let them stream from the comfort of their home. We got them. Tarek does like Tibetan throat singing, like this between the music and the energy work and their very unique perspective. I'd say my highlights were Tarek and Matt Oren.
Nice. Um, and Allison's posting the links as
Mm,
we're talking, and she's also posting the links to
mm.
Matt Arn, and uh, she honestly, I don't know what I would do because she's
I am in the same boat. I
yeah.
have a lovely wife. My wife makes many things work that my creative eyes on the prize person would just be like, oh wait, I got to do something practical to get that. How does this computer work?
So
That's right.
around any of the broadcasts, doesn't matter what it is or anything, we try to with these different broadcasts. Or it doesn't matter if it's on the radio or on live feed. We even have something called the perceptive exchange, where we just try to make people laugh, and
Mm.
because this whole COVID times, so pretty much the whole world's in topsy turvy. And are there any blooper reel moments that you want to share that could, you would consider funny or
Mm.
humorous?
From From
Oh,
which?
from the
From the
gathering. Yeah.
Oh God. Let's see. It wasn't so much funny as it was really, really weirdly on point. Tarek's presentation, he had a technical difficulty as he was doing this energy work thing to kind of like push people through like this sort of trans-dimensional, interdimensional experience.
Mhm.
His camera fuzzed out in a way that like we've never seen before. I've never seen before. And it weirdly went through the cycles of color that
Hmm.
he had been describing for how he perceived this transit.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so again, yeah, that was just more like huh, huh. Did that really happen? Like that's kind of cool. The, I'd say that the funny part was we did something that we'd never done before, which was my wife and I ended up in a live interview with the Chaos and Shadow podcast people. Younger folk, really, really bright, very eager about things. And like, we just talked about silly stuff
Mhm.
and, why we love to build communities. Uh, I hate to say that we didn't have like silly blooper reels, but the folks doing the gather committee were so on point and
Mhm.
so organized that it was just ding 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 ding, and mostly just us behind the scenes going, "Oh, did you see that?"
It's it's not really a blooper reel, but one of the investigations that we're doing here at the Medutu effect is we're investigating actual rituals, and
Mhm.
we're investigating more on the frequencies and the magnetic fields. We're also investigating. We have a time distortion probe where we measure time distortions. Because how many times have you done a ritual and you said, "Wow, it's only been five
Yeah, there's
minutes"?
there's
You know.
totally a time dilation.
So we actually have hard
And
data on these things.
super exciting.
So one of the it's not really a blooper reel, but I'm going to pick on Raven, who is at your
Yeah.
gathering. So she calls the quarter for the east. We had multiple cameras all around, and so as soon as she calls it, that camera in the east shuts down. That's
Mm.
it, and it would not come back up. It came back up right when she did her closing. And now, mind you, we're not just doing the whole "oh, this happened." Downstairs, there's a technician monitoring every frequency, every bandwidth.
Mm.
We actually have the floor lined with copper wire, the circle is, so
Mm.
that we can measure frequencies. So we have all this going on at one time down here. And so as soon as the camera froze up, Steve immediately thinks in his mind, oh, it's frequency interruption, everything else. So he checks first the camera's working fine. It's actually feeding still.
Mm.
There's no image. It's just froze on one image. So now he's looking for frequencies. What is interrupting? So he's running the full spectrum analyzer, going for the anything from radio broadcast to whole 9 yards. Okay, nothing's there. So now he's hopping over to magnetic fields. So he's literally got a chain of breakdowns to try to debunk it right away while we're in the middle of doing it.
Mm.
So and collecting that data. So it's they're actually, if you ever get a chance, if you go to the look up on YouTube Medutu effect, we actually release. We don't keep this big secret. We
Yeah.
release everything,
That's
and because that's the only way any of us going to get better. We learn from it, and
yeah.
we're doing it again this year, and we do it every year. The first one we did was outside, and oh yeah, and the sound of the crows. That was the bizarre one. Through a ghost box of all
Mm.
things. While he's doing this with he's got a ghost box. We're using everything you can.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got mixed opinions about the ghost box, but
Yeah, I've had mixed results with them. Although I think some of that is just like I'm really sensitive to like chaotic noise, and so
mhm.
like people put that on, I'm like, oh, vampire, no concentrate. I'll be in another room.
Yeah. But with the ghost box in this case, oddly enough, crows came across it,
Huh.
which we recorded it and everything, and it's like we actually have a synced up frequency. Raven, well, Allison just posted it. When the circle is actually all synced up, you go from and I know we're getting way off track. I
Mm.
apologize, but
No, this
uh,
is fascinating.
we go from 14 hertz up to
Hmm.
41 hertz, and it locks there, and then it rolls back. Closer it gets to time. But we have everything on the YouTube video. Like, once again, this isn't a big secret. We just try to share as much information because we can learn from each other. And now the actual ritual, we mute
Hmm.
the what's being said because everybody in the ritual has different paths, and so they may be going by different axioms or different monads on their belief system. So we, out of respect, we mute the audio, what's actually being done, and just kind of narrate it. But we're more interested in the data. Oh, Allison posted the link.
Hmm. Cool. Cool.
So, and we're doing even more research lately. So our biggest focus right now is time distortions and identifying specific frequencies. So,
I've just been waiting because when we did Paranormal State, there was so Ilfie Music was presented as Wiccan on the show, but she's actually a Thelemite, in
mhm.
like generational, like she was trained by her father and her mother and everything. So there's a point where they have her doing the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, of all things, on a boat in a lake. Like she's in a pond standing in a boat with her sword, and they thought it would be really cool to kind of like, get some mist going and just watch her doing the thing. But they don't explain any of that. And it's not like they tried to apply any kind of like paranormal investigation to like, does this have an effect? It's
Right.
just, they treated it in the same way of somebody waving around some holy water and a cross. Like, not, uh, but I've wanted, I've seen like the Hellier crew has started to like really dive into that, and I think because of the popularity of their show, started to like also get some of the production companies in La La Land,
Mhm.
Hollywood, like to really go, huh, maybe people could be interested in this,
Mhm.
maybe it's not just ghosts,
Yeah, because this, we explore the wormhole theories. We're exploring string theory. We're digging deeper into this, and it's more for, well, it's more for personal, but it's also so that other teams can, use that. Maybe they're going just for ghosts, and now they're thinking outside the box. Oh, what if, So,
To go
um,
back to our earlier thing, what's the
mhm.
difference between an occultist and a paranormal investigator? The paranormal investigator is trying to like find proof of the paranormal outside of themselves, and occultist knows that we're all paranormal.
Right. That's good. I like that. That's very good. I like that a lot.
Feel
I'm
free to
watching.
steal
I'm gonna
it. Yeah,
watching
heard it here,
porn
folks.
because I could kidnap you for hours. But so so cut to the chase on this. We're really proud. We have most of your books in the library, and thank you for signing them all. I appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you for the
Uh,
music over the years.
what's that?
Thank you for the music over the
Yeah,
years. I haven't forgotten.
thank you. I'm playing them on my radio station. I kind of, some of them bring back horrible memories.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
actually, talk about memories. You remember Earn, the metal band that I played with?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, oh,
the guy with the long blonde hair, the guitarist, he
hmm.
died of COVID this week.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, jeepers.
Yeah, yeah, 1 year older than me. Not the friend that I thought was going to predecease me, but so lift a glass to Thunder God Thor, Dominic St. Charles.
It's coffee, but it'll work. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, plastic bottled water, but same deal.
So, with that being said, uh, what should give us a rundown on not only the new
Mm.
books, but what's coming up, or if you can talk about them.
Let's see. This year the big thing was the 10th anniversary of the Dictionary of Demons, which will not teach you how to exorcise demons or how to diagnose possessions, but will give you a rollicking history of what the idea of a demon is, predominantly from a Western European and like continental, like US perspective. So 1,700 different names of things that are identified as demons, fallen angels, and even evil spirits, from grimoire and magical texts and other such things. And a kind of guided tour by yours truly for like what does this mean practically, and how has it shaped culture and movie and books. There's let's see, at the beginning of the pandemic, I got a wild hair to just pull out a couple of archives. So there's a collection of articles that I was writing in tandem with Paranormal State called Wide World of Weird.
Hmm.
And then there's Winding Path of Words, which was all of my pagan articles that have been published from, I think, like 93 onward. So there's a couple of anthologies. I have a deck of cards called the Contemplation cards, and they're for journal working and meditation, and are also oracular if you don't mind being smacked with a 2x4, because they're two by four. There is a companion shadow work deck that goes with those, and that was all, I guess, this past year. It all blurs together. I'm working on a couple of role-playing game things.
Oh.
So getting back into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's this October that White Wolf Onyx Path comes out with the Vampire the Masquerade Ghost Hunters expansion. So they did basically an expansion in that world for paranormal investigating, and I wrote part of that. I've got a short story I'm really proud of in an anthology called There Is No Death, There Are No Dead. And then every other thing that I've been doing is up on my Patreon on patreon.com/haunted. And my wife is giving me a look that I'm probably forgetting something.
Netflix.
Oh God, yeah, totally forgot that. I also own a haunted Airbnb, and I can finally say that they did a Netflix episode in my inspiration house, and folks will be able to get to see what their travel hosts experienced on September 14th when the whole series drops on Netflix.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Quick question that popped up here.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen there's a new version of the Dictionary Demons. Can we ask what's the difference in the new edition?
Absolutely. So the first time, in order to publish this massive tome, I had to cut about 40,000 words out of it because they felt it was too long. So with the anniversary one, I was able to put back in, we added about 300, I think it might have been closer to 700 new names, because in the 10 years since that one came out, there'd been so much scholarship and so more things, and a couple of things that had been discovered. So, at the time we thought that Trithemius and the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum was like one of the oldest places where you could find the 72 goetic demons, and there's a couple of things older now, or like really close to concurrent. And I was able to pull all the information from those and fold that in.
Nice.
There's a little bit more information on the crossover between the Solomonic demons and the Islamic idea of jinn. And then there are a whole bunch of articles in the back that address the ancient biblical world, the sort of demonic landscape of beliefs in the ancient Near East. More information than you probably ever needed to know or wanted to know about the Watcher Angels, the Book of Enoch, and how that has shaped our ideas of the Nephilim and all of that. So just chocked it full of all of my academic. I was pretty much planning on becoming a professor writing. Only it's not nearly as boring if I had stayed in academia.
Nice. I was looking up at the monitor because around the room in the main hall, we actually have prints, occult prints, mostly so that people ask questions. And one of the prints is the old woodcut of Azazel. And because immediately you see the old woodcut, and people that aren't aware, they start asking questions. Well, is that the devil? Is it this? And when I start off with that's where you come up with the term scapegoat. And I go through the whole process of how that evolved from the Gregorian and everything else. It gives them something they can connect to. Doesn't mean they have to believe it or anything. It just gives them something they feel more at ease of understanding. and that's why all the occult prints are set up that way. It's that people ask questions, or
Hmm.
and it's like Pythagoras. Everybody thinks he's the father of math. Yes, he was, but he was also the father of many occult. Well, of most
Mystery
occult.
school, yeah, straight up.
And so I have his works up on the wall, and so it's nice to see people that come in that are not familiar with the occult or magics or anything like that, and they can connect it to their actual daily. It removes that whole mysterium of the occult away, and it's quite as way more normal than they thought. And but anyway, I know I could go on. Like I
Nope,
said, I
nope,
could
me
kidnap you
too.
for hours, so I apologize. Um, uh,
Melding of minds.
yes. Um, so give us a rundown on. I know Allison's been posting
Mhm.
links and everything nonstop. Links to the book. I'm just scanning through, making sure she's not missing anything. You got anything that you want to add on tracking you down in your projects?
Ah, fun things that I do because I also write fiction, and it's sort of like where I like live and escape. Even though it's escaping to a much like a very dark world too. If you're curious about that, I've got a series, Conspiracy of Angels, Harsh Gods, and the Resurrection Game, that I might be coming back to. Like that launched in 2015, and there's some stuff coming down the pipeline with possibly some audiobooks and other things. And obviously, like everything that I'm doing, you can find on michellebelanger.com. I also make incense. Recreating ancient Egyptian temple incense from recipes that were recorded on mainly the walls of the laboratory room at the Temple of Edfu. So like dates back to Ptolemaic Egypt. So it's 2,500 years old or so, and like just kind of play with that scent, and have also been like really kind of getting back into like herbalism and stuff that I did in college.
Nice, because I like making my own incense here, and I like personally loose incense more than anything. But I do make the sticks. I caved. I made them, but I
Yeah, I,
prefer.
I, I used to make sticks and cones. I don't like them as much.
Yeah.
I prefer loose incense, and the temple incense is closer to the incense that they use in the Japanese incense uh, ceremony. So kodo incense, where it's not like meant to be burnt directly on a charcoal, and it's not meant to be like lit on fire. It's a little bit more like an ancient wax melt.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
so it's meant to go over like a lower heat, and it slowly releases the scent without like necessarily like too much smoke. It's
Hmm.
very subtle.
Hmm.
It takes a little, like it's a little fiddly to burn if you're used to just taking loose incense and chucking it on a charcoal.
Right.
But once you get the hang of it, it's really neat. I mean, it's not easy. Like it's a 10-day process to make. It's got to cure for 3 months. It's like the easiest stuff to get for it is the frankincense and the myrrh.
Hmm.
Because like the labdanum and oh god, there's like these weird little rhizomes from like a type of sedge grass that only grows in certain places. Like it's some of it's just weird stuff to kind of track down. Um,
Well, it's like kefi. If you're going to make kefi, it's a long process. And
and that is what this is.
no, okay,
Yeah, this
yeah,
this this
because
Kapet or Kifi.
yeah, when people come in and say, "Oh, can I get some kefi? Can you make it up real quick?" Sorry, it doesn't work
No,
like that.
no, it is not. Like if you're doing it by the book, that is, I will get back to you in 6 months.
Yep, exactly. It's no, the loose incense that I make here. I make it so that because from a practitioner standpoint, when you're putting incense onto the charcoal, sometimes you can change the entire properties of the incense
Yes.
for its purpose. So I make most of them where they're self lighting.
Hmm.
I don't put saltpeter or anything in it. It's the oil blend that I use so that they
Hmm.
smolder, and that's what I also teach a workshop on that. But it's I that's my personal preference, and I like that because yeah, I use charcoal sometimes. I'm not going to lie,
Oh no, I do too for certain things. I
but
think I think it's a matter of like what are you trying to accomplish, and
mhm,
also what like what appeals to you and your senses. My wife, I burn up a charcoal. I'm allowed to only do that in the garage, and even then she hates it just because the scent of the charcoal. She's not about it. Like, it ruins everything for her. But some of the stuff that I'm making, I'll still be like, well, can I burn it on a charcoal? Because I know that's how most people are taught to burn incense. And I need to at least experiment so I can tell them, no, don't do that. Or if you do that, this is what to expect.
Just to let you know, a couple of people have already put your book in the cart or purchased it. So
there's a few. There's a few out there.
Yeah. For the demon.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's in softback now. Like, you can't. They only did 3,000 copies of the hardback, which I got a few of my own, and this is mine. And you saw me fussing with it because, like, I put it back on this little thing, and I heard like a tear, and I'm like, no, please, no.
I know we went over in time, and I apologize.
No, that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
as long as you, yeah, it's fine.
So we just had a question pop up, and I'm gonna tell you the theory of it. For years, I'm confessing, I've debunked every time dust particles were on the camera or anything. I immediately threw it out. Yeah, because you know how everybody feels about orbs. So, however, in a recent experiment, I don't know why I didn't clue on this any sooner. So this goes back to the whole ceremonial aspect of more incense in a room. You'll start seeing apparitions, whatnot. And also it dawned on me that I've been throwing out evidence that had, or possible evidence that had a foundation. Okay, dust particles from incense are statically charged. So if you have an apparition in the room, which is an energy field, they're going to either attract or repel. So now you have a literal mapping source for what's going on around in the room. So we actually had a free tool all these years, dust particles, that are electrically statically charged. You know, they're static charged, that I've been throwing out for years. And I'm not saying that it was orbs or anything like that. I'm saying you remember the old trick of putting the baby powder down on the floor and looking for the footsteps?
Old school ghost.
Yeah. So the same concept here, but you're using incense smoke because it's a finer particle. And there was a lot of research that was done in different governments because they want to know how it affected electrical equipment, and because it acted as a conductor across the boards. So with that being said, now we're looking at incense particles that are going on during these rituals, how they're moving from one side to the other, because you can actually map it. Now you can look for airflow.
Well, yeah, you can see there's currents that show up and form in those, and like just sort of shift and drift. And I've definitely seen stuff do some really interesting things and kind of like manifest patterns, if not like actual shapes.
So what we did is we actually I forgot the name of the tool. It measures airflow. My brain just went out. To look for airflow, so that when you do see that pattern, now you have something measuring. Okay, is it airflow? Yes, no. Now, on top of that, we're also measuring for static fields. So any type of static field that's happening in the air, and it does match that movement. Now we know that, okay, that's not the dust, it's the object. Now the next step is to measure for positive or negative ions. So that way we can see that change. So I've actually got footage of me sitting in the room, and I'll leave the blanks out, and I call to come to the center of the room, and you see the regular incense smoke around the room, and then you see it collect and move to the center of the room, which I'll be honest with you, I dismissed all this initially. Then you see, I will join you to the center of the room. And then you see a few minutes later, a perfect pattern of me moving into while I'm sitting still. So once again, I dismissed it all as airflow. It's all airflow, it's all dust, it's all this. And then when it dawned on me about the dust, which I did a huge study on how the dust from the incense, because it's so fine, and the because incense doesn't only put off dust, it also puts off a gas, which is
Mm.
also charged. And when I pieced that together, I went back and looked at the footage and was actually going, okay, now I need to map this. Maybe this isn't just some airflow freak phenomenon. And it turned out it actually was ion flow. You can
Mm.
actually measure the static field. So, from my standpoint, I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt, because I didn't look at this sooner because of how much stuff I've thrown out in the past. What's your thoughts on this?
There's two things that I can point to historically that talk about this. Now, love him or hate him, Crowley experimented with a whole bunch of this stuff, and one of the things that he makes a point of noting when he was summoning any of the goetics was that he believed that they were making their bodies, that they were manifesting out of the smoke of the incense. And when I first read that as a kiddo reading his stuff, I was just like, meh, 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 it's Crowley, whatever. But in doing some of the research with the old grimoire from the Middle Ages and the Renaissance for the Dictionary of Demons, I ran across again and again. Um, Back then, they would talk about the demons as being spirits of the air,
Mm-hmm.
and that wasn't merely about the elements. It was literally spirits that manifested in the air. So they didn't necessarily believe that when they summoned these, that they would physically show up in the triangle or the place of summoning, that they were instead able to coalesce out of air or smoke, that they had these fine subtle bodies, and you would either see them in the smoke or in a mirror as more of a visionary sort of thing. And so seeing that there's at least belief, written down in written record that other people practicing this felt that that was something that was going on, that you helped to kind of like feed into the room to give them something to work with,
Right.
uh, makes me think that I'd love to like see you apply more actual like paranormal research to that to see like what is going on, like how does that work, because it seems entirely plausible to me, and I've certainly seen uh, beings that I believe to be spirits
Mm-hmm.
having an impact on how air flows in a room, the patterns of incense, the patterns of dust, like tiny subtle little things, how water moves in a bowl,
Right.
for like bowl divinations.
Yeah, I love, because in my early years, it was more ceremonial hermetics, then into the thelemics, and you'd always been told you got to have this much incense, as you well
Mm.
know. It's like you can't, just
Yeah, you just choke everything out. I'm allergic to a lot of it at this point. We're like,
so you've got
do
all
some.
this going on, and they were like, this is how the apparitions appear, but you know, I literally, when I was doing all the investigations, and you see these dust particles on the, you know, on the monitor and from the cameras, why in the world did I not stop and go from this to back to that?
Mm.
And I mean, I'm now old, and I should have. Notice I didn't say the age. Um, beep.
I was gonna say I'm
Um,
I'm 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 okay saying like 50s around here somewhere.
yeah, yeah, it's in there somewhere, but it's I should have. I'm kind of kicking myself in the tail because I should have pieced it together when I saw these patterns happening. And it wasn't until later I was talking to Sean actually at the
Mm.
Lux Files, and he mentioned that about I remember when you had to have all that smoke in the room, and I'm like, yeah, not to quote Despicable Me, light bulb, but it was okay, all the smoke in the room. You have the static charge particles. Now you have something for them to either cling to or to repel to manifest. Because they're probably there the whole time, but it just gave you the baby powder on the floor.
Yeah,
And
something that allows more of an interface that our eyes can actually engage with. I know, issues of cultural appropriation aside, I know one of the key reasons why sage is important at all is that it's a smoke bath. That the smoke is seen as something, as a physical substance that is the closest to going over to the realm of spirit, that is kind of a bridge.
Right.
And I like that idea as like using it. And again, like it's problematic because like in the United States,
Mhm.
folks who for whom that was a significant part of the religious ceremony, it was illegal for them to do. And here are every like Crystal Karen on the planet just like waving her little like white sage from the corner store, without like fully bringing like anything without even bothering like what does a ceremony actually mean, like where
Right.
did this come from, who are you borrowing it from, if you're not just stealing it. But
Mhm.
the idea, again, not to get into the politics of it, but the idea that smoke is something that is a half step between here and spirit, like the closest physical representation of what we might think of as like the currents of energy, or at least something that's so close that the currents of energy could interface with and be affected by is.
It's basically it's a conductor between realms.
Yeah,
You know,
it's neat. I want to hear more.
yeah. Now, how many times have you said in a ritual, or you heard in a ritual, let let the smoke carry my intent across the veils.
Yeah,
And actually, it turns out that's what we were doing, and it wasn't just some fancy words. We actually now can measure that. But
I think sometimes stopping to examine the language that we use, that we've either been taught to use, that we traditionally use, or that we act like just sort of hit on, the light, the vibes, the like, why do we choose that language? Like what part of, back here, the unconscious mind has picked that particular word. What else is it telling us?
yeah,
Sometimes there's a puzzle to be unraveled in those bits of language that we take for granted.
and the last workshop that I did, it was just on not path specific. It was just on magics, occult, witchcraft. It was not a path specific. It was
Mm.
just kind of generic. And I said, all these different paths that you see out there, which are developing every single day, taken from another path, and they keep evolving. They're just pieces of the puzzle. You are the complete picture. Uh, so it's, yeah, it's, I'm,
Yeah,
like
we,
I
we,
said,
we, we could go on for another 3 hours. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I'm,
everything we say too. We're all pieces in one another's puzzle.
hmm absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Have you got
Okay.
anything else you want to throw out there?
Uh, let's see. Music, books, check. Haunted Airbnb, check. I do stuff on TV, and I am also silly, and my wife is a lovely, wonderful thing that holds all of it together, because that's a lot of plates to spin. So thank you, Illyria, for being awesome.
That's the same thing with Allison. I would
Mhm.
literally lose my mind. She keeps it.
Keeper of the schedule, answer of the phone. Thank you, all hail.
Yeah, yeah. I get it 100%. So thank you all for joining us. And this is our last live feed from the Cosmos Astrum. We'll be changing everything over to radio. Um, Mostly, it has nothing to do with the convenience of it. It has everything to do with schedules are
Mm.
starting to collide. So, and we want to make sure we give everybody a chance to have a voice. So that's why we're going to be migrating into this format, because there's so many people out there like Michelle and Lua and everybody else has been on the show that have knowledge to share. And like I said, it's not whether you agree or disagree. It's all about if you can walk away just with one small piece of information, then we've done our job. You know.
Even a perspective you disagree with has taught you something.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's something that you don't want to like pursue. That's not your thing,
Well, it's
and
like I always
that's still useful information.
well, it's like I always tell everybody. Always stop and read a book that you know you would not agree with. Just to get a different perspective. So I'm going to play the closer now,
Okay.
and much love to you all, Michelle. If you don't mind, just hanging on for 1 second,
Yep.
and I'll play the closer and kick everybody out. Thank you, everybody.